I'm not the kind of person who jumps to conclusions or buys into ghost stories, but what happened to me that night still messes with my head. This was last year, during a solo camping trip I took to clear my mind. I picked a spot deep in the woods, miles away from any town, where I could just disconnect from everything. What caught my attention was this old railroad line that ran right through the area, completely abandoned, rusted to hell, and half buried under weeds and dirt. I even asked a local at a gas station nearby about it, and he told me those tracks hadn't been used in over 3 decades. That just made it cooler to me, like I was sleeping next to a forgotten piece of history. That night, after setting up my tent about 30 feet from the tracks, I lit a small fire, ate some of the junk food I brought, and crashed early. The forest was dead quiet, just the usual night sounds, like crickets and the wind through the trees. But somewhere around 2 or 3 in the morning, I shot awake to a sound that made my blood run cold. It was a train horn, not distant or muffled, loud, clear, and close. That deep, echoing blast that you feel more than you hear. It didn't make any sense. Those tracks were dead. There shouldn't have been anything moving on them. At first, I thought maybe I was dreaming. I just laid there frozen, listening. Then I heard it again, another long, low blast of the horn, followed by this weird metallic clattering, like something heavy was shifting on the tracks. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely breathe. I unzipped the tent as slowly as I could and stuck my head out, half expecting to see headlights cutting through the trees. But there was nothing. The tracks were still there, rusted and broken in some spots, covered in leaves and branches. No lights, no movement, no sign of a train. But I swear to God, I could still hear it. That low rumble, like something massive was rolling past, even though there was absolutely nothing there. I stepped out of the tent, barefoot, not even thinking about the cold dirt under my feet. I just needed to see it for myself. I walked closer to the tracks, and that's when I noticed something that really messed me up. The ground was vibrating, just slightly, but enough that I could feel it through the soles of my feet. And the sound wasn't fading like a rail train would. It stayed like it was passing by in slow motion, or maybe like it was stuck there somehow. I looked down the track in both directions, and still couldn't see a thing. Just darkness. But the noise, the horn, the hum of the engine, it was all there, loud as ever. It felt like standing right next to a train that somehow wasn't real. I started backing away from the tracks, slowly, trying not to make a sound. I don't even know why. It's not like I was hiding from anything I could see. But something about that moment felt wrong on a level I can't even explain. It was like my body just knew I shouldn't be there. As I stepped back toward my tent, I heard something else, this screeching sound, high-pitched and sharp, like metal grinding against metal. It was way too close. I turned around fast, expecting something to be right behind me, but again, nothing. The trees were still, the air was cold, and there was no light or movement anywhere. But that sound kept happening, almost rhythmically, like wheels grinding against the rails. Even though the rails were so rusted I doubt they could even support weight anymore. That's when I noticed the air had changed. It got heavy, like thicker somehow, harder to breathe. And there was this weird smell, kind of like burning oil mixed with something sweet, almost like rotting fruit. I don't know how else to describe it, but it hit me all at once. I stood there, trying to decide if I should grab my stuff and bolt, or just hide in the tent and wait it out. I've been in the woods before. I've camped near animals, heard weird sounds in the distance. This was different. This felt targeted, like whatever was making that noise knew I was there. It wasn't just passing by. It felt like it was circling me, even if I couldn't see it. I couldn't bring myself to get back inside the tent. I just crouched near the fire, which by then had burned down to glowing embers. I kept looking around, trying to catch a glimpse of anything that could explain what I was hearing and feeling. But the forest was dead silent now. No crickets, no wind, nothing. Just that constant low hum and the occasional screech on the tracks. Then something happened that I still can't wrap my head around. I looked down at the metal rails, and I swear I saw a faint reflection move across them, like light bouncing off the side of a train. Only there was no light source. No moon, no flashlight, nothing. Just that shimmer moving slowly along the track, right past where I was sitting. At that point, I decided I was done. I didn't care about the gear. I just grabbed my car keys from the tent and started walking fast, almost running, back to where I parked, about half a mile from the campsite. But the weird thing was, the further I got from the tracks, the quieter everything became. It wasn't like the sound faded gradually, it just stopped. 1 second I could still hear the train noise behind me, and the next, nothing. No footsteps, no wind, not even the sound of my own breathing, like everything had been muted. that silence hit so hard it made my ears ring. I had this awful feeling that if I turned around, I'd see something standing right there. So I didn't. I just kept walking. When I finally got to my car, I didn't even look back. I jumped in, locked the doors, and started the engine so fast I almost dropped the keys. The forest around me was pitch black, and for a second, my headlights just lit up the trees and the dirt road ahead. Totally normal. But then, as I started to back up, something caught my eye in the rearview mirror. Just for a split second, I saw what looked like a figure standing right near the treeline, where the woods met the clearing by the tracks. It wasn't moving. I couldn't see its face or even details, just this dark outline. And the messed up part is, it was facing the direction I had just come from, like it had been watching the tracks too. I blinked and it was gone. The drive back to town felt like it took hours, even though it was only about 25 minutes. The whole time, I kept checking my mirrors, expecting to see headlights behind me or hear that horn again. But there was nothing, just me, alone on that narrow dirt road, shaking the whole way. When I got back to cell service, I tried Googling that area, thinking maybe someone else had heard something similar, or maybe it was some local prank, like a sound system hidden out there or something. But I found nothing. No legends, no ghost stories, no urban myths. Just silence, like no one had ever talked about that place before. The next day, I went back just after sunrise. I didn't want to. Every part of me was screaming to stay away, but something in me needed to make sense of it. When I got there, everything looked exactly the same. My tent was still up, untouched. My backpack was right where I left it, but the tracks, they were silent. No vibration, no smell, no sound. Just dead, rusted metal like before. I even walked along them for a bit, checking for any signs of recent use. Nothing. No marks, no fresh wear, no footprints. Like none of it had ever happened. And I stood there for a while, waiting, half hoping I'd hear that horn again, just so I'd know I wasn't going crazy. But it never came. To this day, I have no explanation for what I experienced. I've told a few people, but most of them just think I was overtired or maybe dreaming. But I know what I heard. I felt it. That sound, that vibration in the ground, that horrible grinding, it was real. As real as the fear I felt standing there in the dark, knowing something was moving through those trees, even if I couldn't see it. The worst part is, it all just stopped. Like it was never meant to be noticed. Like I wasn't supposed to be there. I haven't been back since, and I don't plan to. But sometimes, when I'm alone at night and everything gets really quiet, I swear I can still hear that horn in the distance. I've done solo hikes for years. It's my way of resetting, especially after a rough week. I'm not some reckless beginner. I check my routes, tell someone where I'm going, pack right, all that. So when I decided to take the trail up near Red Pine Hollow last weekend, I didn't expect anything out of the ordinary. It's not a popular trail, which is part of why I like it. Peaceful, quiet, surrounded by trees that seem to swallow sound. I got there around 9 a.m., the sky overcast but not threatening, just that kind of moody gray that makes everything feel colder than it is. At first, the hike was uneventful like always. Just birds, wind, and the crunch of my boots. Maybe an hour in, I saw it, a tiny pink sneaker like a toddler's just off the side of the path. It looked brand new, which immediately struck me as weird. There weren't any families parked at the trailhead, and honestly, no one in their right mind would bring a kid that small up this kind of terrain. But what got me was the way it was positioned. Not tossed or lost. It was placed, toe pointing toward the trail, like it was part of the scenery. I stood there for a minute, just staring at it, feeling that weird tingle in the back of my neck that comes when something doesn't sit right. I didn't touch it. I just kept walking, telling myself someone dropped it, and it had to be a coincidence. About 20 minutes later, I came across the second thing. This time it was a cell phone, screen cracked, no case, half covered in dirt like someone had stomped it into the ground. Again, it was right along the edge of the path, not buried deep in the brush or anything. I squatted down and brushed a bit of dirt off with my glove. The screen was black, totally dead, but I could see a sticker on the back, one of those cartoony animal ones kids put on their stuff. A panda, same kind of vibe as the shoe. The thing is, it didn't look like it had been there long. No signs of weather damage, no watermarks, just dust. Something about it really unsettled me. I didn't take it, but I did snap a quick photo before moving on. At this point, I started feeling watched. Not in a paranoid way, but that heavy instinctual feeling that you're not alone even though you can't prove it. From then on, I started glancing over my shoulder more than I'd like to admit. The woods were still dead silent, which, if you've ever hiked alone, you know isn't totally normal. Usually there are birds, the odd squirrel, maybe wind rustling the branches. But it was just quiet. Too quiet. I was debating turning back, but the trail ahead curved sharply and something, maybe curiosity, maybe that stubborn hiker mentality, pushed me to keep going. That's when I saw the mirror. It was half buried right in the middle of the path, like someone had pressed it down into the dirt deliberately. A small, round, compact mirror, scratched up but not broken, reflecting just enough light to catch my eye. I stood over it for a long time. My gut was telling me to go back, but I was already deep enough in that turning around felt just as risky as moving forward. I decided to pick up the mirror this time, just to see if there was anything on it, maybe a name or something that would make this make sense. Nothing, just smudges, a couple of fingerprints, and that eerie feeling like I'd just disturbed something I shouldn't have. I shoved it into a side pocket of my backpack without really thinking. After that, I walked faster. I wasn't running or panicking, but I wasn't enjoying the hike anymore either. I just wanted to reach the ridge, get some signal, and call someone, even if it was just to hear a voice. I remember my legs feeling heavier, like every step was taking more effort than it should have. The air was still cold, but I had started sweating under my jacket. My brain kept bouncing between "you're overthinking this" and "someone is messing with you." The next thing I saw almost made me turn around for good. It was a photo, printed, not digital, propped against a rock just ahead of me. The kind of glossy photo you'd get from a cheap drugstore print. It was warped from moisture, but the image was still clear, a woman standing in the woods. She was turned away from the camera, but something about her posture, the tilt of her head, the way her arms hung stiff at her sides, felt off. And the worst part, the background looked exactly like the trail I was on. I stared at it for a while, heart hammering in my chest, trying to tell myself it was just a creepy coincidence. But deep down, I knew better. Someone was leaving these things for me. Not just anyone. Someone who knew I'd come this way. I didn't even bother pretending it was a coincidence anymore. I picked up the photo, shoved it in the same pocket as the mirror, and kept walking, but now every sound, every snapped twig or shifting leaf, made me whip my head around. I wasn't thinking clearly. I kept scanning the treeline, expecting to see someone just out of sight, maybe ducking behind a trunk or watching from the brush. But there was nothing. And that's what made it worse. If I had seen someone, at least I'd know what I was dealing with. But this was like being stalked by the absence of a person. The trail started to narrow, the trees crowding in closer, and I remember the light shifting. Not darker, exactly, but dimmer, like it was later in the day than it should have been. My phone had no signal. Of course it didn't. Then I heard it, a whistle. Just 3 notes, soft and slow. It came from behind me, maybe 30 feet back. I froze. My ears strained, waiting to hear it again. But nothing. Not even birds. I turned around slowly, my breath held so tight my chest hurt. The trail was empty, but I swear on everything, I could feel something there. Watching, like when someone's standing behind you in line, and you know they're too close. I didn't call out. I didn't want whoever it was to know I'd heard. I just turned back around and started walking faster. Fast enough that it was just short of jogging. My heart was pounding so hard it made my hands shake. I don't know how long I kept walking like that, fast, tense, constantly checking behind me. At some point I realized I'd gone way past the ridge I meant to reach. I didn't even remember passing the trail marker. That's when I started to panic. It was like the path had stretched or shifted somehow, like I was going deeper instead of heading out. The forest felt unfamiliar, even though it was technically the same trail. The trees looked closer together. The ground felt softer. I even noticed things like the moss on the rocks looking more vibrant, almost too green. Then I spotted something that stopped me cold, another photo. This one was pinned to a tree with a rusted nail. I didn't want to look, but I did. It was me, my back turned, hiking on this trail. Same jacket, same backpack. It had to have been taken earlier that day. I remember staring at it, trying to wrap my head around how that was possible. I didn't hear anything, didn't see anyone. How the hell could someone have gotten that close without me noticing? My mouth went dry. My hands started to tingle like they were falling asleep. I didn't even take the photo down. I just turned and started actually running. Screw it, I was done. I didn't care about being careful on the trail anymore. I just needed to get out. But the more I ran, the more it felt like I was going in circles. The trees all looked the same, and no matter how far I thought I'd gone, I'd come across something familiar. The same twisted log, the same set of rocks. like I was trapped in some loop. The kind of thing you hear in urban legends but laugh off when you're safe at home. I finally stopped running when I tripped and slammed my knee into a root that jutted out of the dirt. I hit the ground hard and just lay there for a second, trying to catch my breath, trying not to cry. My knee was throbbing and my hands were scraped up, but that wasn't what really got to me. It was the silence. That thick, pressing silence again. No birds, no wind, not even my own footsteps anymore. Just the sound of my own breathing and the faint ringing in my ears. I pulled myself up and limped to a nearby boulder to sit for a second. That's when I realized something even worse. The mirror in my pack was missing. So was the photo of the woman. I checked every pocket. Nothing. Like they'd never been there. I sat there for maybe 10 minutes, trying to get my bearings, when I finally heard something again. Footsteps. Not mine. Not animal. Human. Steady. Slow. Crunching leaves a little off to my left. I froze completely. Didn't breathe. Just listened. Whoever it was, they weren't talking. No light, no rustling, just walking. Deliberate. Like they knew exactly where they were going. Then it stopped. Dead silence again. I waited, heart pounding, ready to bolt if I had to. But nothing moved. I slowly stood, looked around, and saw nothing. Just trees and shadow. But the feeling didn't go away. It felt like whoever, was out there wasn't gone. They were just waiting. I don't usually post stuff like this, but what happened a few months ago still messes with my head, and I haven't been able to shake the feeling that something was seriously wrong that night. I was doing a solo car camping trip through a few rural areas in northern Oregon. I've done this kind of thing a dozen times before, just me, my SUV, some gear, and a sleeping bag in the back. I always park in those little pull-off spots along forest roads where no one really bothers you. That night felt normal. I made a small fire, ate something simple, read for a bit, then climbed into the back of my car and passed out around 11 p.m. I remember waking up suddenly, but not for any specific reason. It wasn't a noise or anything, just that weird feeling like your body knows something's off before your brain catches up. The air felt heavy. I was sweating a little, even though it had dropped to the low 40s outside. My phone said it was 3:17 a.m. I sat up slowly, still half asleep, and looked out the fogged up window, but it was pitch black. No moon, no sounds, just complete stillness. I didn't hear bugs or wind, or even the occasional animal movement I was used to on trips like these. That silence, it felt wrong, unnatural. I was starting to calm myself down, telling myself it was just a weird moment. Maybe I was dreaming and didn't fully wake up. But when I leaned forward to grab my water bottle from the front seat, my eyes caught something on the side mirror. At first, I thought it was just a leaf stuck to it, but then I noticed more, something dangling. I opened the door just a crack and stuck my head out. That's when I saw it clearly, a small bundle of twigs, tied together with what looked like some kind of string or twine, hanging directly from my driver's side door handle. My stomach dropped. I quickly checked the other handles. There was one on every single door. Each bundle was about the size of a fist, and tied so neatly it looked intentional, like someone had taken their time. I swear to God, I didn't hear a thing all night. I sleep light when I'm camping. The slightest noise usually wakes me up, and I would have heard footsteps on the gravel, or at least the sound of someone walking around the car. But nothing. It was dead silent. That's what freaked me out the most. Whoever did that had to have been insanely quiet and deliberate. I felt this wave of nausea just hit me. I wasn't scared in a jumpy kind of way. I was scared in that deep, instinctual way where your body just knows you're not supposed to be there anymore. I didn't even take the time to pull the bundles off. I climbed into the front seat, locked all the doors, started the engine, and drove. I didn't even look back. I drove for maybe 10-15 minutes before I even realized I was still wearing my sleeping clothes and had left half my stuff back at the spot, my little stove, flashlight, even my shoes. I didn't care. I just wanted to get to somewhere with light, with people, with signal. I eventually pulled into a 24-hour gas station in some tiny town I don't even remember the name of. The guy working there gave me a weird look when I walked in barefoot and looking half crazy, but I just bought coffee and sat in my car until the sun came up. That's when I finally worked up the nerve to get out and check the car properly. The twig bundles were gone. All four. Like they'd never been there. That's what really made my skin crawl. I know they were there. I saw them. I remember the way the twigs were broken and bent. Some still had bits of green on them. I remember the way the string had frayed, ends like it was torn from something, not cut. I didn't imagine that. But now, Not even a piece of bark left behind. No dirt marks, no scuffs. Just nothing. I checked my phone, hoping maybe I took a photo in my panic, but there was nothing in the gallery. I must have been too freaked out to think of it. I ended up staying in that gas station lot until the afternoon, just sitting there, trying to wrap my head around it. I've had weird things happen before, but this felt targeted, like someone chose me. What stuck with me the most isn't just how creepy it was, but how specific it felt. Those bundles weren't random trash or something that blew onto my car. They were tied directly to each handle with care. Symmetrical. Intentional. I even keep thinking about how close someone had to be to do that. They had to walk all the way around the car. They had to crouch or bend down. They had to make zero noise. And I was right there, unconscious, maybe just a couple feet away through the glass. That feeling has haunted me. I've replayed it 100 times in my head, like maybe there was something I missed, a noise I ignored, a shadow I didn't catch. But I swear it was just total silence. Too silent. After that night, I couldn't shake the thought that it wasn't just some random prank or backwoods weirdo. Something about it felt ritualistic? I hate even using that word, because it sounds like some cliché you read online. But that's how it felt. There was a purpose to it, and that's what scares me, not knowing why. Were they trying to mark me? Scare me? Warn me? I don't have any enemies, I wasn't trespassing, and I never posted my location online. I picked that spot completely randomly, the same way I always do. I didn't even see another car on the road for over an hour before stopping there. So whoever did that, they were already out there, waiting. I tried telling a couple of people about it, my brother, a friend from work, but no one really knew what to say. I could tell they didn't believe me completely. They just nodded along, made a few jokes about hillbillies or forest cults, then moved on. But I haven't been able to move on. I haven't gone camping since. Hell, I can barely sleep in my apartment some nights without checking the locks twice. Sometimes I even dream about it, waking up to the sound of sticks tapping on the windows, or seeing those bundles tied to my bedroom door handles. I always wake up sweaty, heart racing. It's like the feeling followed me home, even if nothing else did. I looked online for similar stories, thinking maybe this was some local thing or weird warning I didn't understand. I came across a few posts about twig bundles or stick signs in the woods, but nothing matched what I experienced exactly. Most were just folk tales or vague mentions of warding signs, nothing concrete. Nothing that explains why someone would do that silently, in the middle of nowhere, without ever being seen or heard, and then just vanish. I even drove past that spot a couple of weeks later, during the day, just to prove to myself it was real. It looked totally normal, peaceful. You'd never guess anything weird had ever happened there. I've gone over it so many times in my head, trying to figure out if there's a logical explanation. Some twisted prank? But how would they know where I'd stop? And who even carries 4 perfectly made bundles of sticks in the middle of the night, just hoping someone parks there? I keep thinking about the silence. That part gets me the most. The kind of quiet that feels like it's pressing down on you. I didn't hear a thing. No bugs. No wind. No footsteps. Just stillness. Like the whole forest was holding its breath while someone, or something, moved around my car. I've never felt that kind of fear before. Not panic, pure fear. The kind that sinks into your bones. And the worst part, it never happened again. Nothing strange has happened since. No signs. No dreams with actual answers. Just silence. Same as that night. It's like whoever, or whatever, did it, just wanted me to know they could. That they were there. That they got that close without me knowing. And then they were gone. And now I'm just stuck with the memory. No one believes it, nothing makes sense, and I don't even have proof. Just this gut feeling that I wasn't alone that night, and that whoever was out there wasn't trying to hurt me. They were trying to be seen, but only just enough. I'm not usually the kind of person who posts stuff like this online, but what happened to me and my friends on our last camping trip still gives me chills whenever I think about it. We camp pretty often, not hardcore survival stuff, just enough to disconnect, drink a few beers around the fire, and tell the same dumb stories. It was a long weekend, so we picked a more remote patch of public land that a buddy had recommended. He said he'd been there once with his uncle, and it was chill, nobody around to bother you. We got there in the afternoon, set up our tents, gathered firewood, and got a fire going in the middle of this open clearing. Everything felt normal, until I went off a bit to find more kindling, and noticed something weird in one of the trees. It was getting close to sunset when I spotted it. something way up in a tall pine, maybe 15 feet off the ground. It was a trail cam, the kind hunters use to monitor wildlife. But the strange part wasn't just that it was there, it was the way it was positioned. It was aimed directly at our campsite, specifically our fire pit, as if someone knew exactly where we'd be. I called the others over, and we all kind of stared at it, trying to make sense of it. At first we brushed it off, maybe it was from some park ranger or an old hunter, but the area was pretty off-grid. There weren't any real trails nearby, and the camera looked brand new. It immediately gave everyone an uneasy feeling, but no one wanted to be that guy and make a big deal out of it, so we tried to shake it off and went on with our night. But the weirdness didn't stop there. Around 1 a.m., after a lot of drinking and laughing, we were just sitting around the dying fire when we all heard this snapping sound coming from the woods. Not like a twig breaking, more like someone stepping on a big branch. Loud enough that everyone went quiet instantly. We all kind of looked at each other, like we were waiting for someone to say it was probably a deer or something, but no one said anything. It was the kind of silence that hits when everyone's thinking the same thing, but no one wants to admit it. Then it happened again, but this time a little closer. One of my friends, Jared, grabbed his flashlight and scanned the trees, but there was nothing, just thick darkness and the edge of the clearing. We tried to act normal after that, but you could tell the vibe had shifted. A few people joked nervously, but the energy was off. Some of us started putting out the fire and getting ready to sleep, trying to ignore whatever that noise was. I went to pee behind a tree a bit further out, and, I swear, I felt like I was being watched the whole time. I kept glancing around, heart pounding, but again, nothing. When I came back, everyone was already in their tents, so I crawled into mine too, zipped up, and tried to convince myself it was all just in our heads. But that's when I remembered the trail cam. Whoever put it there would have had to climb high up that tree, and they had a clear view of us. All night. I didn't sleep much. Every little sound had me wide awake, straining to hear if it was just the wind or something else. At one point, I thought I heard soft footsteps near the tents, slow, deliberate ones. I held my breath, waiting for someone to unzip a tent or cough or say something, but it was dead silent. No one else moved. Eventually, I guess I must have drifted off for a bit, because next thing I knew, it was just starting to get light out. I got up quietly and stepped out, needing some air. The fire pit was cold, and the forest around us looked off. I don't know how else to put it. Like it was too still. Not even birds were making noise. That's when I noticed something that made my stomach drop. There were boot prints. Not ours. We had checked the ground when we first arrived, and the dirt around the fire had been pretty untouched. These prints were fresh, and they circled our tents. Literally. They went from one tent to the next, all the way around the camp, like someone had walked through in the middle of the night checking each one. I called Jared over, and he just stood there staring at them. We tried to rationalize it. Maybe one of us got up to pee. But the prints didn't match any of our boots. They were deeper, wider, and there were no signs of someone walking away. Just the circle, then gone. We were all pretty shaken at that point. Nobody had a good explanation, and no one wanted to admit how freaked out they were, but it was obvious. We packed up faster than we ever had before. While we were taking down the tents, I kept looking up at that damn trail cam. It still sat there, aimed right where we'd all been sitting just hours earlier. I mentioned taking it down to see if it had a memory card, maybe some clue, but Jared shut that idea down fast. I don't want to touch anything that doesn't belong to us, he said. And honestly, I kind of agreed. There was something about that camera that just felt wrong. Like it wasn't just recording us, it was meant for us. As we were heading out, I kept checking over my shoulder. I don't even know what I was expecting to see, but I couldn't shake the feeling that someone, or something, was still out there, watching us leave. When we got back to the main road, we all sort of sat there in silence for a minute in the car, like nobody knew what to say. Finally, someone broke the silence with a half joke like, "Well, that was creepy as hell." And we all kind of laughed, but it was empty. No one really thought it was funny. And no one's brought up camping again since. A couple days later, I couldn't get the whole thing out of my head. So I went down a rabbit hole online trying to figure out who might have put that trail cam there. I searched forums, local hunting groups, even public land regulations to see if it was normal for rangers or something to leave cameras out. But nothing explained the placement. It wasn't on a game trail, it wasn't tagged or labeled, and it was too well hidden to be for anything official. I even looked at Google Maps to see if there were cabins or private properties nearby. There weren't, just miles of forest. The more I thought about it, the more it felt like someone had put that camera there on purpose, to watch people like us who stumbled into that specific clearing. The worst part? I checked the photos we took on our phones during the trip, just casually flipping through them. And in one of the early pictures, taken when we first set up camp, I noticed something that made my skin crawl. Way in the background, barely visible between two trees, there was a figure. Just standing there. It was blurry, out of focus, but you could clearly make out the shape of a person. None of us saw anyone that day. We would have noticed. We should have noticed. I showed it to Jared, and his face went pale. "That wasn't there," he said. And he was right. We were being watched long before we even saw the camera. I haven't gone camping since. None of us have. We barely even talk about that trip anymore, like we're all trying to pretend it didn't happen. But it did. And sometimes late at night, I still think about how high up that camera was, how someone had to climb that tree and secure it there, how they knew exactly where to aim it. That wasn't random. That clearing wasn't some lucky spot we stumbled into. It was chosen. And we were the ones who walked right into it, voluntarily. I don't know if we were being watched just for that one night, or if someone had been observing that site for days, weeks, maybe even longer. I still have the photo with the figure. I've shown it to a couple people, and everyone gives me the same nervous laugh, like they're trying to find a logical explanation. But no one can say what it was. It's just there, standing, watching. No one ever came forward to claim the trail cam. We even called the local ranger station anonymously to ask if they leave cameras out in that area. They said no. That place isn't maintained. "You sure you were camping there?" the guy asked. I was. We all were. I don't have answers. All I know is something was out there with us that night, and for reasons I still don't understand, it wanted to see everything.